Okay, so hello everybody. Welcome to this week's enrichment. I hope you can all hear me. Do put up something in the chat if you have any problems with hearing me or seeing what's going on. Today I am welcoming Mo Gawdat, who is famous for having written this book, which is called Soul for Happy, and it's a international bestseller about how we can achieve happiness. And Mo has a very interesting personal story in that he began life as an engineer. He worked for, he was chief business officer for the famous Google X, which is the moonshot part of Google. So he was incredibly successful as a young man, but nevertheless, inexplicably, suffered from depression. So his journey sort of began there, in which he was trying to solve his own depression and achieve happiness himself. And in a very engineer's sort of way, with an engineering approach, he came up with an equation for happiness, which he will explain to us shortly. So Mo, thank you very, very much for being with us and for sparing the time. And am I right in thinking that you are in Dubai at the moment?
I am in Dubai, and my body is in Canada, or my body clock is in Canada, so I'm completely jet lagged. And you could probably say I have no idea where I am. So if I say anything that's strange, forgive me.
We'll know why. But I find it because I find it quite exciting that for these enrichments we can now interview people anywhere in the world. Which
absolutely, it is amazing, the upside of what happened, because before that, I have to say, the only way for me to reach any audiences whatsoever was to fly across the world. And that would have meant destroying the planet and exhausting me. And now it's so easy and it's so wonderful to reach so many more people. And so, yes, I am very grateful for that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Mo, could we start with you perhaps explaining, because our audience know very little about you, explaining your starting point for your investigations and for what is now in the book. What happened to you in your life?
I started life as we all do. I mean, everyone who hopefully listening to us will go through a similar story, more or less. We come through life in our teenage and our university years, and they tell us that life is all about success. And, you know, we need to achieve, and we need to get higher and higher and acquire more and more. And, you know, I've done that. You know, I was the happiest person you'll ever meet until age 25. Age 25, I married my college sweetheart, who we stayed 28 years together. And even though we're separated now, we're still best friends. She gave me two wonderful, wonderful children. I had all of the money that you can, when we started, me and her, we had nothing at all, just so that you understand. We came out of university. My first job, I had a salary of somewhere around $60 US a month. Okay, and we were the happiest people you can ever meet. Nothing would dent our happiness. She gave me two wonderful kids. One was a tiny little Zen monk. The other was a sunshine itself, fun and excitement, and all of the joy that you can find with a child. And yet, and then I started to work in IBM, and then in Microsoft, and then I started to trade in the stock market, and literally became filthy rich, like really, really rich beyond my wildest dreams by age 29. And I had a big villa with a swimming pool and 4 cars parked outside, and everything was going well, and I was completely depressed. From a 25-year-old who had nothing and was the happiest person to a 29-year-old who has everything and is completely depressed. And I remember vividly, by then Aya, my daughter, must have been 5 years old, and Aya came to me one day on a Saturday saying, "Papa, you know, today we're going to do this, and we're going out and we're going to play." And I was like, "Can we please be serious?" Okay. And I remember vividly how grumpy I was and how I could see in her eyes, her heart breaking. And I simply told myself, that's it. I'm never going to be that person again, and started to research happiness. I tried and tried and tried to understand it, couldn't. And I'll be very open, because it wasn't written in a language that I understood. And so eventually I ended up having to think about it as an engineer. And as an engineer, happiness is really, really very straightforward. It follows a predictable equation. It follows very, very predictable behavior, almost like a machine. And I'll be delighted to explain some of that as we continue our conversation. And I sort of found the left brain side of happiness. And then I would go to my wonderful son, Ali. Ali was, as I said, a tiny little Zen monk who understood happiness instinctively. And I would ask him, and I would say, Ali, I did this research and I ran that experiment and I collected this data and I put it in a chart and it looked like this. And he would go like, wow, that's so interesting, Papa. You could have just asked me. When you feel from the heart, we call this, and he would give it a name, right? And so between my work and Ali's work, I found that model, and that model actually worked for me, worked for him, worked for our family, worked for everyone that we knew and we communicated the model with. And then Ali sadly left our world. And they say, where I come from in the Middle East, in the Islamic background, they say that your challenges are equal to your capacity plus a tiny little bit, your capabilities plus a tiny little bit. So, the more I mastered my happiness, the more life sort of tested how far I can go. And I think the ultimate test was losing Ali. I lost him to a very simple surgical operation, really. The surgeon did 5 mistakes in a row. And within 4 hours, my son left this world. And I think my test was, I did okay, because 4 days after he died, I realized that there was nothing I could do to bring him back. And that instead of bringing him back in the flesh, I could bring his essence to millions of people. So I wrote Solve for Happy. At the time I was still at Google. I took a 6-month sabbatical from Google. I attempted to oops,
Sorry
hold
about
on.
that.
So tomorrow we're gonna be ready.
No worries. Guys,
I'll
mute.
show you these. Well, I'm
Ollie,
printing
could you
some
mute?
of my new sheet now.
Can you mute, please, everybody? If you can hear me, can you mute?
I'm muted. Oh, I'm trying to mute Connie. Okay, so Connie's camera is off and she is not on mute. Anyway, so Ali's departure for me was the trigger for me to start and spread his message, if you want, across the world. And yeah, we started with a mission of 10 million happy, which was thanks to technology and social media achieved within 6 to 8 weeks, I think. And then so we basically started to I'm finding it very difficult to concentrate.
I'm going to have to go and
Yeah, of course.
taking my computer with me.
No worries. I'm sorry about that. It's just
I'm sorry.
very difficult to focus. We launched the mission, and then through social media and other content, video content, and so on, we ended up reaching 10 million happy in 6 to 8 weeks. And so we upgraded the mission, and the mission now is 1 billion happy. And we're trying to do that, hopefully over the remainder of my lifetime.
Yes, which is a fantastic target, I must say. So can you explain to us the equation you came up with? So to solve your own depression, you came up with a system, as it were, if that's the right way to describe it.
Yeah.
Can you explain a bit about that? How did you go?
So I didn't come up with an equation. Nobody comes up with an equation. You just observe and document how the world behaves, right? You know, when Einstein comes up with E equals mc squared, he didn't invent that. He just observed that E equals mc squared. And what I observed through a very simple exercise, actually, let me start from the assumption. The assumption that the modern world tells you is that you can acquire happiness by bringing things into your life. Okay, that if you have a certain girlfriend or a certain boyfriend, that if you buy a certain item or dress up in a certain way or whatever, if you do things, you can bring things into your life and they'll make you happy, and that's absolutely not true at all. Okay, and the evidence for that is that when you are born, your default state is happy, and what you actually have in that state is nothing, right? So every child that you've ever seen, when fed safe, loved, warm, given their basic needs for survival, basically their state is happy. Okay, and so with that in mind, you realize that nothing from outside you makes you happy. There are things from outside you that make you unhappy, and if you remove the unhappiness, what's left behind is happy. Okay, and so once I understood that discovery, I ended up trying to find out all of the triggers, all of the reasons that make me or make us in general unhappy humans. And of course, like a typical engineer, I was like, yeah, you don't want to count every single one of them. Maybe there is an equation that describes the moments in your life where you felt unhappy, right? There is a common trend among them. And so what I started with something I call the happy list. I wrote down every single moment in my life where I felt happy. I remember at the time I ended up with 92 of them, 92 moments. And those 92 moments where I felt happy were moments where, if you try to find a trend line between them, there is actually only one trend line. There is one common thing that describes every single moment in your life where you felt happy. So I had moments like I feel happy when I have a good cup of coffee, and other moments where I said I feel happy when my daughter smiles, right? What is common between coffee and daughter? It's like it doesn't seem to be anything in particular. And then I realized that the only common thing is that you feel happy when life seems to be going your way, okay? As a matter of fact, a good cup of coffee doesn't always make me happy. Sometimes it makes me happy and sometimes it doesn't, right? And so basically what that means is that it's not the event in itself that makes me happy or unhappy. Coffee doesn't make everyone happy. There is no inherent value of happiness in coffee. What makes you happy is that you compare the event to what you want life to be. And when you find that life has given you what you want, you feel happy. When you find that life has missed your expectations, you feel unhappy. And you can start to apply that on everything. But let me summarize it in an equation first, because the equation in that case would be your happiness is equal to or greater than the difference between the events of your life and your expectations of how life should be. Okay? And so every moment in the world, really every single moment that you go through, your brain compares an event to an expectation. Okay, it looks at the event and says, okay, they can't hear me because there is noise in the background. Does that meet my expectations, or should I feel worried, right? Or maybe I'm talking too slowly, is that okay, or should I speed up, and so on and so forth. And as you compare every event to every expectation, you realize that unhappiness is actually very, very simple from a definition point of view, and happiness is very simple from a definition point of view. Happiness happens when the event meets your expectations, okay? And that basically means that happiness is that calm contentment that you feel when you're okay with life as it is, regardless of what life actually is. You could be locked down and you really want to be out and meet your friends, but if you find it in your heart to say, but I'm okay with lockdown, I'm gonna do something I enjoy, or I'm gonna chat with someone, or I'm gonna watch something, and I'm okay with being locked down, that contentment, that peace is happiness, okay? And there are many, many other examples. For example, we feel happy in nature. Most humans will feel happy in nature. The simple reason is when you're in nature, you're okay with nature as it is. Even if a tree is crooked, you don't tell yourself, hold on, trees should be vertical, right? You accept nature as it is. Nobody sits in front of the ocean and says, I like the view, but can someone please mute the sound? Okay, once you're okay with nature as it is, you get that feeling of peace and contentment. They say gratitude makes you happy. Gratitude makes you happy because it's a reminder to your brain and your being that you're not only okay with life, you're actually grateful for life. Life has beaten your expectations to the point where you're grateful. And so all of those practices reflect on happiness, or result in happiness. Interestingly, however, what the modern world sells us as happiness actually doesn't at all. So the modern world normally sells us products, parties, fun time, distractions. All of those things are sold to us as reasons for happiness. No, they are reasons for fun, for excitement, for pleasure, and none of those is happiness. As a matter of fact, biologically, when we engage in activities that make us excited or have fun or feel pleasure, what happens is that we get different hormones in our bodies than the hormones that we get when we are happy. When we're happy, calm and content and peaceful, we get serotonin, which is a calmer. It's basically telling your body, look, we're okay with this. We don't want to change it. Sit down, relax, rest your muscles, digest your food, feel okay, right? When you're, for example, in a party jumping up and down, you're getting dopamine. Dopamine is a reward hormone that is an excitatory. And that excitatory is basically pushing the serotonin out of your body and making you excited, but not making you calm and peaceful and okay with life as it is. Now, there's nothing wrong with fun, by the way. The only thing that is wrong with fun is when it stands in the way of your happiness. So I do it the other way around. And I know people here are young, so they may think that they're having more fun than me. I have more fun than all of them combined, but don't tell them. Okay, but I choose to have my fun after I found my happiness, because then I'm calm and peaceful, and I'm not trying to distract myself by having fun. And that's really the problem. The problem is that we use fun in the modern world as a painkiller. We use it as almost as if, I'm unhappy, so I have a bit of a headache. I don't try to fix the reason for the headache. Instead, I try to take a painkiller, and the painkiller is I'm going to go out to a party and dance. And when I'm dancing, I'm not going to think about the things that are making me unhappy. And accordingly, I will go back to my default state. I'm not solving my happiness equation, so I don't realize that events are missing my expectation. So I feel happy like a child. The problem is, the next morning you wake up and your brain goes like, are you trying to numb me? There was something I needed to talk to you about, something that is missing my expectation. Your boyfriend didn't call for 2 days. It means that he doesn't love you anymore. There is an issue, and so on and so forth. And so you go to the gym, you run on the treadmill, your brain focuses on the treadmill, and once again, once you hit the showers, the brain goes like, seriously, there is a topic we need to talk about, and the unhappiness keeps coming back. That idea of a painkiller is very addictive, right? So you go from one party and it doesn't work anymore to another party, to a third party, to a wilder party. If the treadmill doesn't work, you jump out of an aeroplane. And all of that is an attempt to distract your brain so that you don't actually solve your happiness equation correctly and find calm and peace, right? So what I do is I recommend that first you find calm and peace, and then supplement that almost like a vitamin with all of the joy and all of the pleasure and all of the fun that you can have, but once you've already solved the basic need for happiness.
So can you tell us a bit about finding that calm and peace, and how we should go about it, or what you suggest?
Yeah, there are a couple of ways to look at this. One is a procedural approach, which is what I call the happiness flow chart. And the other is a conceptual approach. And perhaps we should explain the conceptual approach first. The conceptual approach is unhappiness or happiness results from a comparison, which is events minus expectations, right? Which basically means that if you're feeling unhappy, that means your life is wrong. Something is wrong in your life. Events are missing your expectations. Now, Stanford ran a research, I think across 4,000 participants, and they figured out that 60 to 70% of the thoughts in an adult brain are actually negative. They're always saying that something is wrong. Now you have to ask yourself, could it actually be that 60 to 70% of your life is wrong? If 60 to 70% of your life is wrong, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be able to survive. And really, when you think about it, 60 to 70%, 90% of our life, even more, 98% of our life is always okay. We're alive. We have something to eat. We are in shelter, and so on and so forth. There are things that don't meet our expectations, but we're actually okay, right? I mean, let me give you a clear example. With COVID-19, most people come to me and say, what are you talking about? How can we be okay? There is lockdown. We lost our freedom. People are dying. Some people are losing their jobs. Some people are getting sick. What are you talking about? How can we be okay? And I'm like, are you sick? Are you dying? Did you lose someone that you love? Did you lose your economic livelihood? Do you still have have food on the table? If yes, if you haven't lost any of those, then I'm sorry to tell you, the extent of the lockdown is that they forced you to stay at home and binge watch Netflix. Really, this is it. And the reality is that instead of thinking about all of those events and saying the world is breaking down, you should think about those events and say, oh my God, I'm so lucky. I am so fortunate to not be among those who are sick, who lost someone that they love, who are unable to meet their economic needs. Right? And now suddenly, when you start to realize that, you start to realize that, hold on, why is my brain telling me I'm not okay when actually I am? And that question really is at the core of the conceptual issue of happiness. And in that concept, I address that by using a model that I call the 6-7-5. I believe that there is really, most of the time, nothing wrong with your life, okay? Other than either the way you see the event is not accurate, you don't see the full truth of the event, or maybe you see part of the truth and part distorted, or your expectation is not realistic, okay? And if you compare a blurry view of the event to an unrealistic expectation, what do you expect to get? You expect the equation to be solved incorrectly. And because it's solved incorrectly, you end up in a place where you don't feel happy. Is that because there is anything wrong with life? No, it's because you're solving your equation wrong, okay? And the reason we solve the equation wrong is because of what I call the 6 and the 7. 6 grand illusions and 7 blind spots. The 6 grand illusions are concepts we are taught to believe, okay, that help us navigate the modern world and make us successful, but they make us unhappy. So when it's almost like telling you that the easiest way to go upstairs is to take the elevator. This is the fastest way, but it's not the healthiest way. If you take the stairs, it's actually better for you, right? And because you believe that you should take the elevator, you should take the car, you should be lazy, right? You don't exercise as much, and so you become unhealthy over time, right? Similarly with happiness, they tell us that we should control everything. That, for example, if you are in a relationship, that your boyfriend or girlfriend should do everything exactly as you expect them to. They should never really miss your expectations. They should always be wonderful and bring flowers and be nice and be kind and tall and handsome and everything, right? I mean, where did you come from? Like, seriously, we're humans. Everyone has mistakes, and the reality is that event will never meet that expectation, and your expectation of control is not going to work. So if you fix the 6 grand, if you see through the 6 grand illusions, 90% of your unhappiness goes away. On the other hand, there are 7 blind spots. These are not mistakes in your brain. They're the actual design of your brain. Your brain is designed to see what is wrong, for the simple reason that if a tiger shows up right now, your brain shouldn't be telling you, oh my God, look at how beautiful the patterns on that animal are. Right? Your brain sees no benefit in this. What it wants to tell you is, oh my God, we're gonna die, right? And we're gonna die is what your brain tells you about everything, Huh? So, I show up to this, call 12 seconds late, and if my brain wasn't trained, my brain would be telling me, oh my God, you've screwed up royally, this is never going to work, they're going to kick you out, and they're going to insult you and wipe the floor with you before they kick you out, right? But that's absolutely not the truth. And our brains are exaggerating. Our brains are blocking some of the truth. Our brains are looking for what's negative. They're mixing emotions in, they're mixing memories in, because they're designed to tell you that something is wrong, because finding out what's wrong is important for your survival. So if you see through the 7 blind spots, you actually start to see life as it is. Again, I give you an example. We may be losing, let me tell you, we're losing in the United Kingdom, COVID-19 is the 14th reason cause of death, okay? Which by definition sounds quite alarming on the British media. But when you really think about it, there are 13 other causes of death that are not being spoken about, okay? One of them is heart disease, which kills 10 times more people every single year since the year I was born, and that was a very long time ago, okay? And nobody ever speaks about it as a pandemic. Oh, but it's not contagious. Of course it is. And the kind of stressful life that we live is putting all of us at danger, at risk and at a threat. It's not contagious by sneezing, but it's contagious by the contagion of stress that we're portraying on each other. And when you start to see life that way, you start to realize, oh my God, most of the time, the things that I'm panicking about, the things that I'm unhappy about, the things that I'm, worried about, the things that I'm ashamed of or regretful about, are actually not even true at all. They either were an illusion or a blind spot. And because they're illusions and blind spots, we end up in a place where we are unhappy, in a form that I call unnecessary, unwarranted unhappiness. It's unhappiness that was not needed in your life. So this is one way of addressing it. The other way of addressing it is practical, okay? If you now understand the concept that unhappiness is not always warranted, that there are illusions and blind spots that cause it, then let's talk about the practical steps that you take. And the practical steps that I normally use is something I call the happiness flow chart. And the happiness flow chart is very, very straightforward. It is an approach that understands what unhappiness is about, okay? Unhappiness is events minus expectations. It basically is your brain telling you something is missing my expectations of safety. Something is missing my expectations of an optimum place in life, okay? So compare that to a fire alarm. It's basically your brain's sounding the sirens to tell you, hey, there seems to be something wrong. Can you do something about it? Okay? And if you start treating it like a fire alarm, everything changes. Now, what are the characters of a fire alarm? It is noisy and annoying like hell, but it wants what's good for you. And if you respond to it by reacting the right way, you will be absolutely fine. Okay? So think of a fire alarm and think of your happiness your unhappiness the same way. When you feel unhappy, what you want to do is to react by saying, okay, first of all, let me acknowledge my unhappiness. By the way, most of us in the modern world are trained to not accept the fact that we have negative emotions, to not show our vulnerabilities, to not even admit to ourselves that we're vulnerable. And that's a mega, mega mistake, because I will tell you, take it from an old man, that you're only alive when you feel, okay? If you think yourself to death, but numb your emotions, you're never gonna feel alive. Life is only felt in emotions. It's never felt in thoughts. It's never felt in actions. It's never felt in procedures. That's number one. Number two, if you know that you feel a certain way, embrace it. Embrace it, because by the way, you don't choose what you feel. What you feel is always true, right? And when you embrace it, ask yourself the question, why am I feeling this way? I promise you, if you can manage to get to the thought that has triggered your unhappiness, you will get back to happiness every single time. It's the checkmate on the chessboard, okay? All you need to do is to figure out the thought that triggered your unhappiness. By the way, thought is different than event, okay? My partner said something harsh last Friday. That is the event, okay? The thought is he or she doesn't love me anymore. That's a very different, that's not the event, okay? That's what your brain is trying to explain the event as. Once you find that thought, 3 questions and you're checkmate. Question number 1 is it true? Okay? Is it true? I remember vividly. By the way, I call my brain Becky, and we can come back to this in a minute. But I call it Becky because my brain is a third party. It's giving me thoughts for me to consider, not for me to obey. So I remember vividly one day I was having, I had a bit of an argument with my daughter. My daughter's 26 now. We loved each other to pieces. And, you know, one time we had an argument. So I said, okay, baby, I'm going to leave. Maybe take a few minutes to unwind, have a coffee, and come back and we can talk about this. The minute I walk out of the building, my brain tells me Aya doesn't love you anymore. And I promise you, I stopped in the middle of the street and I said, what did you just say? What did you just say, brain? Where did you get that from? Like, we played yesterday together. We talked about this. You know, she actually texted me yesterday when I went home and said, I love you, Papa. Okay. Where did you get that from, brain? Is it true? Do you have evidence to back up what you just told me? Okay. And if it isn't true, then I promise you the wise thing to do is to drop it. I mean, seriously, if you want to be unhappy, but at least be unhappy about something that is true. Okay. If something isn't true, drop it. So question number one, is it true? Question number two, if it is true, is what can I do about it? Honestly, it's a fire alarm, right? It's telling you there is a fire in the building. What do? You do something. You get up, you walk out of the building, and the problem is solved. The fire alarm doesn't annoy you anymore, and you're safe, right? And similarly, with most of the triggers that make us unhappy, do something about it. Ask yourself, what can I do about it? You know, my partner said something harsh last Friday. Fine, text them. Hey, baby, I feel a little hurt about what you said on Friday. Can we talk? Simple, right? You know, if they don't want to talk, hey, baby, can I, you know, dump you and go find someone who will listen to me when I'm feeling hurt? It's simple, right? Do something about it. When you do something about it, life changes completely. That's number two. But what if you cannot do anything about it? And often life gives you things that you cannot do anything about. Take my example. Ali leaves my world. I could grieve for 27 years. I could actually hit my head against the wall for 27 years. And you wouldn't blame me, but it wouldn't bring him back. Okay? So yeah, I realize that it's not nice. It's very painful, very hurtful. Okay? And it's a mistake, a human mistake. And I could have rage for the rest of my life. Would it bring him back? It wouldn't bring him back, right? So I learn, and actually, again, this is a very, very cultural belief in where I come from. I learned to accept when life forces my hand. I accept not from a place of weakness. I accept from a place of strength. It's like when you have an assignment at work or at, you know, in uni, and basically that assignment is due. You can complain about the assignment for 16 hours. It's not going to take the assignment away. You might as well use the 16 hours to finish the assignment. Okay? And so when life forces your hand, accept. Accept, but don't stay at the low point. Accept and then commit. I call it committed acceptance. Okay? Committed acceptance is to say, okay, Ali is not coming back, Mo. This is it. Right? But you can make his memory and essence alive by sharing his story with millions of people. Right? Is that a good thing? Is it better than living life without him and hitting your head against the wall? Is it going to make you feel better? Is it going to make the world feel better? Is it going to make him proud of you? Is it going to make him remembered? Is it going to make him loved? Yes. Okay. It doesn't bring him back still, but it makes the world a better place. So through those three questions, is it true? Can I do something about it? Can I accept it and do better despite its presence? Through those three questions, and I promise you, I'm not bragging here, I measure my ability to bounce back to happiness. And on average, I bounce back to happiness within 7 seconds. From the moment I feel unhappy to the moment I'm back to calm and contentment and being okay with life as it is, takes me on average 7 seconds. Sometimes this year, I had 4 instances that took me a little more than an hour. One of them took me a day, right? But the rest of it, I bounce back. Why do I bounce back? Because it's clear. Is it true? No, drop it. If it's true, can I do something about it? Yes, do it. Can I not do something about it, but commit and do something despite its presence that make my life a little better, yes, do it. And you're done. Most of the time, that sitting, complaining and feeling unhappy and feeling victimized and feeling that life is unfair doesn't change anything. It just tortures you. It's a waste of life.
That's really interesting, Mo. And in a sense, what we have to do is wrestle our brains under control, it seems to me. We have to stop letting the brain take control and lead us in directions that we don't want to go to.
You are the boss, huh? Remember, you've never told your brain to do anything and it said no. You just sometimes choose not to tell it. Okay? If I tell everyone now to tell their brain to raise their left hand, nobody's brain is going to go like, no, I don't feel like it. I'm going to shake my right ear. That doesn't work that way. Brains do what we tell them. Okay, they are a tool at our disposal, but we choose not to exercise that right.
Yeah. Can I ask you, do you think that teenagers have particular challenges when it comes to being happy and maintaining happiness? How would you advise teenagers to address the ups and downs of peer pressure and fear of missing out and worries about exam achievements and the many, it seems to me, teenagers have a lot of things to deal with, and they don't have the perspective, perhaps, that older people have of knowing how long these things will last, which is not that long.
The challenge is not perspective, in my view. I think so. I'll say this openly in front of everyone. You have a much harder life than we did. Much harder than we did. Okay, simply because almost everything is stacked to test your ability to find Zen, really, in a very, 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 very noisy world. And so I would attribute, I could talk for hours, but I would attribute the two biggest struggles that a teenager would face today to ego, which is the constant desire to fit in, and I need to talk about that in detail. And the other is what I call deliberate attention, okay? And if you don't mind me starting with the second, and I hope I don't offend anyone, this is biologically proven, okay? We have different parts of our brains. Our brains develop at different stages of our life. When you're a teenager, your limbic system is the part of the brain that's responsible for your emotions, develops fully by age 16, 17. Okay, and so you become full of passion, full of excitement, full of emotions, full of feelings, right? However, your prefrontal cortex, which is the part that is responsible for decision making and for deliberate attention, and I'll come back to deliberate attention, develops fully only by age 22. And the gap between them is of paramount importance to happiness because of a phenomena that is known as hypofrontality. So in most of the negativity disorders, if you want, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, substance abuse, depression, anxiety, and so on and so forth, you name it, okay, it's normally associated with the lack of the ability of the brain to exercise deliberate attention, okay? So when we are in our, your brain can operate in one of two ways. One is called the default mode network, okay? And the default mode network is when you are not paying attention to something in specific, your brain sort of wanders. It's almost as if it's the fire alarm scanning for things. It just goes through everything. Your memories, your possible futures, your current situation. It just ruminates, if you want, okay? And that default mode network, when uninhibited, causes us to go, because the brain's tendency is to find what's wrong, it causes us to go into a lot of negativity, okay? And the answer to overcome that tendency for negativity is to exercise deliberate attention, okay? And so deliberate attention in the spiritual sense is normally exercised through meditation, Okay, and if you can meditate, I would absolutely recommend it. It completely flipped my daughter's life upside down. Okay, 10 minutes a day, exercising that ability of the brain, developing that prefrontal cortex so that you can exercise deliberate attention. But if not, there are 100 other ways you can exercise deliberate attention. One of them is don't do two things at the same time. Okay, if you're with your friends, listen to your friends. Don't listen to them and swipe on your phone at the same time. If you're swiping on your phone, swipe on your phone fully. Okay, when you find something on your phone, pay attention to it rather than going to the next one. Right? If you are walking in the street, I do many exercises. If I'm walking in the street, I count the number of cars that have the number 6 on their plates. Okay, I count the number of people wearing red. I count the number of trees that have a scent to them. I listen to birds. I look for crying babies' noises. I try to find the smell of coffee. Whatever that is, I give my brain an exercise that allows me to exercise deliberate attention. Now, our brains are exactly like our muscles, even though they're hidden inside our head. And they follow a simple concept. What you use grows, what you don't shrinks. Okay, and so the more you exercise deliberate attention, the more able you are to exercise deliberate attention, because the prefrontal cortex, like a muscle, will grow. Okay, and so this is my number one request of teenagers is focus on something at least 10 minutes a day, but if you can, 10 hours a day. Focus. When someone is talking to you, focus. When you're writing something, focus. When you're walking the streets, don't just walk aimlessly, and so on and so forth. That's number one. Number two is, as I said, the idea of fitting in. Okay, and the idea of fitting in is quite big, because the penalties of not fitting in seem to be quite high in our teenage years. And I've learned from my wonderful monk of a child, Ali, at a very young age, actually, something that completely changed my life. Ali, I was a very career-oriented person. And so when Ali was 9, we were moving again, because my work was moving again, to his 11th school, okay? And so he was under a lot of pressure to make friends. And around 3 days after he went to school, he came back and said, yeah, I found a new friend. Nice boy, okay? Ali was that tiny little Zen monk. His new friend, George, was the devil himself. Like literally, I mean that wholeheartedly. He had no bad intentions. He was a nice child. But you know those children that are full of energy, breaks everything, shouts and screams needlessly, and runs like mad all the time. And Ali is like, right? And you compare the two of them, and it was just so much pressure on Ali, right? 5 days after he met George, he came home. By the way, Ali was 9 at the time. He came home and he said, Papa, if George calls, tell him I don't want to be his friend anymore. I was like, what? Where did that come from? And then as he, basically walks up the stairs, George calls, okay? And he says, Papa, hi, is Ali there? And I go like, yes, George, but he said, and before I finished my sentence, he said, okay, I'm coming, right? George, energy, right? And so around 20 minutes later, his mother drops him off at the gate and leaves. And now we have George at home running like mad saying, where is Ali? Where is Ali? Where is Ali? Where is Ali? And then Ali comes down the stairs quietly, as he has always lived. And he says, hi, George. So nice that you're here. As I told you at school, I don't want to be your friend anymore. Okay? Of course, you can stay here and play for as long as you want, but I'll be upstairs and I hope that you don't bother me. What is that boy about, right? So anyway, I gave George some toys, put him out in the garden, went upstairs to Ali and said, Ali, what is going on? And Ali said, look, Papa, if I stick to George, it will take me too much effort, too much energy to be something that I'm not, okay? I'm not gonna enjoy it, and people who like me will not come near me because I'm near George, okay? So I figured, if I'm not with George, I may be lonely for the next couple of weeks, but eventually someone will show up that likes me for who I am, okay? Someone with whom I do not have to pretend. And, you know, totally, you know, he was right. 2 weeks later, Jack showed up, an exact copy of Ali's persona. Jack and Ali together became very close friends. And then suddenly Nick showed up and they became truly the magnet of school, right? Why were they the magnet of school? Because they didn't pretend. They didn't pretend to be anything. It was so natural to them. It was so easy to them. They were who they are. Now, here is the truth about fitting in. And I know this will upset a lot of people. You will never fit in, ever, ever fit in. Why? Because by definition, some people will like you for who you are, and others will actually dislike you for who you are because they like different people. You go to any dating site, okay? And what will you see? There are people that like people who are skinny and other people that like people who are curvy. Great. If you're skinny, you're not liked by those who like curvy. If you're curvy, you're not liked by those who like skinny. It's very straightforward. And in my statistical mind, in my mathematical mind, I will tell you your best shot ever is that 20% of the people you will meet will like you. Okay? So you have one of two choices. Either pretend to be everything for everyone, and accordingly, you're probably going to be fake and nobody will like you after all because they don't know who you are. Or just be who you are, like Ali did. Just be who you are. That will repulse some people away from you, okay? They will go like, no, I don't want to be with this person. And that's absolutely fine, because then the people who like you for who you are going to show up, okay? And when they show up, it will be effortless. It will not require you to pretend, and it will be still 20%. It will still be exactly the same number of people, just different people that you actually like and who actually like you. Pretending, ego, trying to fit in never works.
That's incredibly wise. I think very wise and very helpful. I have, as I said, a few questions from our psychology students, which we haven't got too much time, and there are 4 questions, so I'll try and get through them. Frankie is asking, there are external factors that impact happiness, some biological. Is it idealistic to think that people can become happier by just thinking so?
So there are many schools about that. My school says there is no external factor that makes you happy or unhappy. There are external factors that cause you pain. This is different than suffering. Let me explain the difference. Pain comes from outside you. I lose my child, it hurts me. I miss him, it hurts me. Someone says something hurtful, it hurts me. That comes from outside. It's similar to physical pain in terms of it is there to alert you that there is something you need to do about it. Physical pain, you cut your finger, you pull your hand away. There is a reason that we feel physical pain. And even if we dislike it, we wouldn't want to live without it, because without it, we would cut our fingers and put them in electricity and so on and so forth, right? The difference between physical pain and emotional pain, however, is that I dare you try to remember how it felt like when you cut your finger the last time, okay? We don't have the mechanism that allows us to regenerate physical pain. But we do have a fabulous machine up here that is very capable of regenerating emotional pain, right? I call it the Netflix of unhappiness, unhappiness on demand, right? A friend, says something hurtful on Friday, that's the pain, right? On Saturday morning, you wake up and say, oh my God, that was remember that thing, that scenario that happened last Friday? Let me play that again. And then on Sunday, you go like, let me torture myself a little more. On Sunday, you add a little bit to it. And you say, it's because I'm an idiot. It's because I deserve it, and so on, right? All of that unhappiness on demand is a choice. It's not because of the external event. The external event has already happened. Okay, it's behind you. It cannot affect you anymore unless you give it the power to affect you by turning it into a thought and ruminating over it in your head. Okay, so I apologize to say the external events can cause you pain. but they cannot cause you unhappiness. I taught happiness to, of course, tens and tens of thousands of people. One of them walked to me once and said, "What are you talking about? What are you talking about? You have no idea what happened to me when I was 17. She was 76 at the time. Okay? From 17 to 76 years of age, she kept ruminating on the same event that happened when she was 16. And she started to tell me about it, and I listened attentively about all of the things that, you know, she thought about. And I said, did that actually help? Did it change anything? Did it change anything? All of that unhappiness on demand because of one event, horrible as it is, or not, by the way, often it isn't that horrible, that happened 59 years ago, right? And when we start to realize that, we realize that suffering is a choice. We choose to be unhappy. You could take the same event. I wake up every morning and my brain tells me Ali died, okay? I tell my brain, yes, brain, and Ali also lived. It's my choice. It's my choice what I think about. I can think about Ali died and it's a very painful experience, or I can think about the blessing of Ali lived. I had him in my life for 21 and a half years. And by the way, I didn't even deserve it. I did nothing to deserve it. That wonderful blessing, I should be grateful that Ali lived. And that's a choice. I can choose that.
Yeah, that's incredibly true. I've got another question from Ayana. I'm not sure. Ayana, do you want to ask your own question? Are you there? Okay, she's there, but I'm going to ask it for her. She says, people have different definitions of happiness. How can we use the equation to ensure that it is relevant to all people?
So people have different definitions of so many things, okay? And as an engineer, the first thing I've attempted to do was to actually find a definition of happiness. And the definition as per the equation is that calm and contentment you feel when you're okay with life as it is, okay? And you get many definitions that describe what you do when you're happy, that describe what you feel when you're happy, that mixes happiness with fun, that mixes happiness with spirituality, and everyone has an agenda, right? But the truth is, happiness is the result of a comparison between events and expectations and being okay with life. Serotonin confirms that. Serotonin actually has the role of saying, stay as you are, we're okay with this. We don't want to change it. Okay, and so that's my definition. My definition is happiness happens when you're okay with life as it is. It's the calm and contentment. It's the peaceful feeling that we have inside us.
Yeah. Okay, and I've got a question from Weston. Weston, I'm not sure if you are there. Will technology, the continual advancement of technology, result in unhappiness if people lose their purpose? Assuming over time, for example, that technology might replace human jobs and the consequent unemployment may result in unhappiness.
Man, how much time do we have for that question?
So I suppose will we lose our place in the world or our sense of ourselves?
So I'm finishing actually. I'm 4 pages away from the end of my third book, which is called Scary Smart. And Scary Smart is about how artificial intelligence is going to evolve and have a place in our lives, okay? I will, however, not talk to you about that now because that's a very long topic. I will summarize it by saying the following. Up to artificial intelligence, technology is just a double-edged sword, okay? So technology really, what technology does is it magnifies our capabilities. You can walk at 5 miles an hour or drive a car at 150, right? It just magnifies your mobility. It magnifies your ability, and so on. You can carry 50 kilograms, but use a crane to carry 50 tons, right? And so as a double-edged sword, what technology is doing is it's magnifying what's inside you. And so social media, for example, I can use social media to spread, and I do, by the way, on my Instagram, I do on my podcast, Slow Mo, and so on. I use technology to spread messages of happiness. If I used it to spread messages of hate, it's just going to magnify my voice. And so similarly, if you use technology to stay connected with your friends, you know, it's going to help you out. If you use it just to escape in your boredom into swiping, you know, what I call swiping and typing toxic internet, it's just going to work against you. Now, we make a choice of how we use technology to magnify our abilities. Do we want to magnify it in the good or in the bad? Okay. And with that in mind, there is absolutely nothing wrong with technology. That's actually the opening statement of my last chapter. There is absolutely nothing wrong with technology. There is a lot wrong with us. Okay. If we manage to fix ourselves, then technology will magnify our amazing selves. Okay. If we're narcissistic or aggressive or rude or bullying and so on and so forth, technology will magnify that and make us unhappy. It's your choice and my choice. And by the way, it's an individual choice. We can't ask everyone to change. But I will tell you openly, and there was, if you go to my Instagram page and look for an update that I call Half Monk 4, I will show you exactly how I dropped my usage of toxic internet from 7 hours a day to 1.5 hours a day, right? By deliberately measuring, you know, and taking charge and taking control and doing the things that please me and not the things that take away my time.
Right. That's fantastic, Mo. I'm going to have to let you go because we've run out of time, but that was so interesting and I'm very grateful to you for giving us the time.
I am honored that I've been here. Thank you so much.
It's really, really kind of you. And I hope, will it be all right with you if we put the recording on our website? Because
please do. Yes, we want to spread
it like that.
Yes, we want to spread the message.
Yeah.
Also, if I didn't answer your question, find me on social media. Instagram is probably my more active account. So Mo_Gawdat on Instagram. I answer every question that I get. Do spend the time to listen to my podcast. And I'm not selling you anything, it's for free. But my podcast will give you a lot of interesting messages about happiness and how you can work on your own happiness. It's called Slow Mo, SLOMO. Yeah, I mean, stay in touch. And if I can help in any way, I will always do what I can.
We will do. That's so kind of you. Thank you very much, Mo Gawdat. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone. That's the end of this week's enrichment. So thank you all for listening. Bye.